And we're live. Alright. Hi, it's Amon here, and I'm gonna make a beat as fast as I can. I'll have a bit of parts on this video sped up. It's not gonna be like a live stream per se. It's gonna be one of those videos you see typical YouTube producers make. So, first little tip here before I start making the beat. I always load up a template. So I have these like silent notes here for the kick and the snare, so I can just lay them in, and there's a pattern there already, and I can edit it a bit. It saves a lot of time. And then I have all my mixer presets loaded up here with plugins all over them. It does take the project a bit more time to load initially, but it saves a lot of time in the beat making process. So first, I'm gonna look for a sample here. Alright, I think we're gonna go with this one here and try to turn it into something. Occasionally I may come back over here and mute myself so you don't hear the mouse clicking if I remember to do that. So first thing I usually do is I get the BPM, and I like working with BPMs between 60 and 120. So if it's above that, I half it, and if it's below that, I'll multiply by 2 usually. So this will go to 77. You want to make sure it lines up right there with typically at least one of the numbers, but usually it's one of the even intervals, like 1 to 2 or 2 to 3, or 1 to 3. So you get like a bar or 2 bars or 4 bars, sometimes 8, sometimes 16. Just due to personal habit, I'm changing the color. Now, this is making a beat relatively fast, so I'm not trying to make an entire beat like chords and everything. That's obviously going to take longer. Getting a sample and drums down with some synth work is the easiest way for me to work. Maybe throw some sound effects in it. Now, I don't make all my beats this way, but it's the quickest way to work. Kanye does it, so why can't I? Now, another thing I will say is I have these loaded up on my mastering channel. I just got a cut right here at 30 hertz. And then I like this low pass filter. The way it works, it kind of like the slope decreases as I pull it down, so it sounds a little more natural and smooth when I automate that. This right here, it just makes all the bass below a certain frequency mono, and then soft clipper here to soft clip it. I'll go ahead and engage the limiter just in case I get that high. Usually I keep my beats between 6 and 3 here. And then the Pultic EQ, this is a free one. Anybody can get it, but I just like the way it makes things sound, especially on the high end, down on the bass. I just take it to the bass at around 30 hertz and up it and decrease it by 3, boost and attenuate, so it makes this little curve. It's kind of how a Pultic EQ works. You increase and decrease the frequency the same amount, and it sort of makes this special little curve that it kind of sounds like it boosts it, but if you look at the EQ, it still looks pretty even, you know? So I do the same thing to the high end at around 8,000 hertz and just boost and attenuate it by 7. Alright, so here's the part where I go quiet and I start making the beat. I'm going to speed this process up, but just to give you a rundown before I start, damn, I said that kind of weird. I'm going to find a good snare and a good kick, and I'm going to lay out a pattern with them, and then I'm going to find a drum loop sample to kind of layer over them, and then I'll use an EQ to take out the lower frequency from the kick. That way it's just my kick and snare pattern with the hi-hat pattern that I import. And then I'll probably lay some synth work. Now I'll update you through the process, but I'm going to work in silence for now. So yeah, this will be time-lapsed. All right, I'm back real quick. So I laid out this little kick and snare pattern and looped it, and then I did a bit of mixing. And like I said, I'll give a rundown on what I did later in terms of the mixing. But here's what I got so far. And that's about it. So I'm going to find a drum loop, lay this down, and then do some synth work, and then more mixing, and I'll give a rundown of that. Another tip here while I'm doing it. One thing I like to do for the reverb to put it quote unquote on beat is take the number 60,000 divided by the BPM, and then me personally, I divide that by 8. As long as you divide it by a even integer, it should be all right. And then I copy and paste the first 4 or 5 digits back 2 decimal points. If this right here is a 9, the third decimal point, I round the other one up. And then get a decent mix here and on the drums. Lower the decay. And now I'm gonna lay some synth work. That right there is my keyboard. It's a Korg micro workstation. It's got a bunch of presets. Right now it's on the default piano. I'm gonna take it down to synthesizer. And then I like to find the key of my sample, so we're in G minor, meaning I'm only gonna play with those keys. That was a little loud. Typically, I play in octaves, so I stick with like G4 and G5 maybe. We'll see how it sounds. So I played C and A there in between the G's just to see how it would sound, and it was alright. I'll probably stick with the G's for this, or I'll find a key that works. But yeah, this part will probably be time-lapsed. I will say that I'm most likely going to use the Power Pad 1 preset and the Sweet Pad 1 preset for this. Maybe the Synth Bass preset on the keyboard. But I don't know. I'll probably add an 808 as well with some distortion, just a little bit. But yeah, I'll time-lapse this part. Alright, so I did some synth work here. I laid down some higher synths, G5 and G6 with my Sweet Pad here, and then G4 and G5 with the Power Pad, like I said. Here's what it sounds like so far. I made the loop a little longer just for demonstration purposes. Now, the beginning of this is probably going to change. This is just what the loop sounds like for now. that's where I'm going to stop it. I did drop out the synthesizer and the sample there on that replay, just so you could hear it without each one. So what I'm probably going to do next is maybe a little more synth work, and I'm going to build up the full beat here after I do that and add the 808s. So I'm going to mute, and this will be time-lapsed again. I decided against the synth work, so I'm laying the 808. All I did was copy the kick pattern, picked an 808, made sure it was bass is drowning me out. I made sure it was in key with the sample, so I've got a G sample. It's G minor, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, G minor, but as long as this is set on G, we're good. The sample itself says G, so we should be alright. So I copied the kick, selected my 808, open this, and it's on C5. Since the sample is in the key of G, it should play right on that G. So I'm going to listen to this and take some bits away until I get a decent 808 pattern. This may be time-lapsed, and after, I'll give you a demonstration. Alright, so what I did was, like I said, I took the kick pattern, I laid down some 808s. Whoops, wrong thing. And I got this pattern here. Basically the kick pattern minus a lot of other kicks, like probably half the kicks are gone. And then I took away the kicks and the 808s and the synths from the beginning here just to make sort of a, not build up, just an intro sort of thing before it kicks into the hook. And I'll probably work on that, maybe add a riser there. And then I took the 808, put it to the 808 track, turned it down by 11 decibels, put on bass line here, which I really like this to add some stereo to your bass. I guess you'd say stereo width and some harmonics and shit. So essentially, it's just going to make it sound wider and fuller. Now, it does go through Patcher here, and below like 200 or 250 decibels, not decibels, hertz, sorry. I was speaking about the volume, so I kind of got crossed there. But yeah, all that goes to mono. Everything above that, though, is still stereo, and this helps add width to that. And then I got kilohertz. I think it's kilohertz. It's kilohertz or it's kilohertz, the brand. I got the distortion plug-in there with some drive turned up, which really made me have to turn the bass down because of all that drive. Now I am going to enable the hot coffee EQ here with just a boost on the highs, nothing on the lows, to add to the beat. I like putting that on there for like a pre-mastering phase on the beat, and then all this on the master. Some saturation on the vocal too, but I'm not doing the vocal for this. And yeah, this is what we got. We'll stop it there. Now I will say, I did go onto here and click cut myself or cut itself, so when one hits and the next hits, they don't bleed into each other. I also did some sidechain equalizing here with the kick, so it goes down on the kick, or not the kick, the 808, sorry, on the bass when the kick kicks in. And I reversed the polarity of the 808 sample because it looked like it was a bit out of phase with the kick. Now it does sound a little iffy on some parts, which I'm not too happy about, but we're gonna go with it, at least for now. I may come back and fix this later. And I think I'm gonna go ahead and turn this into a full beat, just loop stuff. maybe come back and add sound effects or something. This part will likely be sped up, time-lapsed, and then I'll go through some of the mixing, whatever I can remember to check up on that I didn't already show, and I'll say what I did with the beat. So yeah, here we go. Alrighty, so I laid out the synth work, chopped the higher synth there, the sweep pad up, and put it around on the verse a bit, after the hooks and before the hooks. I looped this synth all the way through it, looped the 808s and the drums through it in the sample. It's a pretty basic beat. It only took, let me check here, 53 minutes, and that's also with me going on rambling about how the whole process works. So I probably only worked, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes of this, probably 40 at most. I've been talking an awful lot, and I don't know if that adds time to it with all the plugins and stuff loaded up here. But yeah, the recording itself is only 34.5 minutes. Now, I did have this project file open before I started recording, and it took me a good 15 minutes or so to do what I needed to do before I came back, sat down, and, you know, made the beat. So I don't know if that contributed to it. It is kind of weird that this is so different from the timer on FL. But yeah, we'll go off the video timer and say it only took 34 minutes with my talking and rambling. And I don't know if I'm going to add any sound effects to this right now. I'll look through it, and if I decide not to, I'll just go over the mixing on the next part of the time lapse. If I do, I'll say what I added and go over mixing and then play the full beat. Here we go. Alright, so before I do the mixing and go over that process, I added some sound effects. This riser you're about to hear, that. I added that before each hook. I added sound effects through the hook, so this hits every 2 bars. It's the classical Kid Cudi sound effect with some reverb and stuff on it, and then this hits at the end of every hook. Both are panned into the left ear, is that right? Yeah, the left ear by 50%. The riser is just centered. So I'm gonna go through the mixing and then I'll explain that and then let you hear this. Also, there's this bit of silence here at the end, just because I like to allow the beat to fade out loud. Just a little bit like that, so the reverb has time to decay. And yeah, time to go through the mixing. Alright, I think this will do it for the mixing. So, the drum preset I had for the reverb, 97.4 milliseconds on the pre-delay. I kept wanting to say the pre-fade. And then 11.7 on the mix and 0.84 seconds for the decay. I got a low cut of 250. I copied that to the sound effects and just upped the decay a bit for each one. I'm not going to go through the specific settings of every single plugin, just the ones that matter. And I'm not going to go through the specific volume levels either. But yeah, I got that. None of the others really have any plugins on use there. The effects doesn't have anything done to it aside from what's already done before they hit this bus. The synth I have turned down to 4, and I've got an OTT preset here loaded up with the depth on 20, the time on 100, and then the gain, both gains in and out on 0. I think the bands are set to where they're supposed to be by default, and then the upward and downward compression, not pressure, are both at 100%. The 808, like I said, I have bass lane and some distortion on there, turned down to 11. So on the kick, I don't have anything but the side chain controller. On the snare, I have retro color loaded up with the distortion on tube pair as it comes at 20%. And then I've got a little bit of decay and pre-delay on here with the stereo, not delay, stereo reverb. I got a little bit of low cut and high cut here. So that's at about 8,000 on the high cut and about 300 on the low cut, turned up to 16%. And then on the drums, I just got OTT loaded up like the last time with the upward turned down to 80 and the downward turned down to 90. And then the time is at 80% and the depth is at 20. And then Waves H comp with that's threshold. It's at -28, I'm pretty sure. A ratio of 2.0. I got it on analog 4 with a bit of punch there. And then the attack is at 30, it looks like. Output gains down to 7.5. Release is as default at 100, and the mix is up to 100% wet. And then on the melody, last thing here, or the sample, it's turned down to 11, and it's got OTT on it with 15% depth. Everything else is as it loads in as. No reverb on that. The only thing that has reverb would be the synthesizer and the effects, I think. And then, like I said, I got the hot coffee EQ here on the beat, and these effects loaded up on the master. The one that really is going to matter is the Pultic EQ and patcher here to sum all the low frequencies to mono, not monochrome. I keep wanting to say the wrong things here. It's been a while since I've recorded one of these videos, especially with how I'm doing it now. I usually don't talk and I just do a stream. But yeah, I'm going to let the beat play uninterrupted. This won't be time-lapsed, and we'll wrap it up after this. So, I don't have a title. I'll come up with one after this ends, but here we go. Sample, drum loop, drums. I got the, on this sample, what I do to get the kick out, just to mention this real quick, I use an EQ, and I cut way up here, so it gets all of the kick out and most of the snare out. It leaves just the hi-hats and the upper end of the snare. And then sometimes I'll do some transient processing to make the snare hit less hard. And I do a lot of compression to make sure it's out of the way, because usually those snares peak high on these samples. And yeah, I'll let this play now. Here you go. And yeah, that's him. Came in with the fade out, like I said, let the reverb decay there. And that was the whole beat. So I'm not going to look at the FL time. I'm going to look at the OBS time for reference. A little over 50 minutes of jibber jabbering and making this beat here and mixing. I may come back and edit a bit later, or this may be the final product. I'm probably going to make another beat after this for Slick's channel. We both run YouTube channels, and I've been trying to keep him up to date with content here recently. So, yeah, I have other stuff to do after this. This isn't the only thing I got to do today. My content has slowed a bit due to work, like work, not just music production. So, I got to get that money, got to rake in that dough. But I'm going to try to stick to like a schedule of 3 album rating shorts, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Have one of these videos go up every Thursday if possible. And then every Friday, I'm still sticking with the beat or a single every single Friday, weekly. And yeah, I don't really have a lot of announcements to make other than that. And I'm working on a few projects that'll be coming down the road. I hope you all enjoy. And if you want to see more content like this or the album ratings or just beats of music every Friday when I post it, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell to stay notified. Subscribe to the homie Slick too if you want to help him out. I'm almost at 1,000 subs. I'm slowly working my way there. And yeah, if you want to join the cause, just hit those buttons and become part of the army. Okay, that was the corniest thing I said. We aren't an army, but we'll just call it the crew, the gang, the homies. Join us. And every Friday, I think it is, or every weekend, Slick and I are supposed to try to post a podcast to his channel, by the way. I'll cut that up and edit it whenever the time comes. And he's got beats coming out on his channel every Friday or every 2 Fridays. Right now, they're made by me. I use samples he sends, and I make a whole beat out of that and then throw it up on his channel along with a beat on my channel. That's how that's been working until he gets a new laptop to work stuff out. And yeah, other than that, that's about it. So, I guess I'll leave here. I don't really have an outro statement or anything special, except keep it real and don't forget to follow your passion. If you like music or whatever your dream is, follow it. Don't let anybody tell you not to pursue it. It's your life. You do what you want to. And with that, we'll end it here. See ya.